Hey friends, it's Suzanne Mosley with Usborne Books and More. You can find me on Facebook at Suzanne Shares Usborne Books. You can find me on YouTube at the same spot. So I wanted to show you today some books from Usborne Books and More that I recommend if you are tutoring foundations with classical conversations for cycle 3. So I'm currently an Essentials tutor. I've done that for 3 years, but 4 or 5 years before that, I tutored foundations, including cycle 3. And these were books, many of them, that I used multiple years as a foundations tutor. This is the first one, the Usborne Science Encyclopedia. Honestly, it's just a book that I could recommend for everyone to have in their library because we use it all the time. It was great to have, honestly, as a foundations tutor for all 3 cycles, because let's be honest, some of the things that we were doing science projects and science experiments on, I wasn't familiar with. And the QR code and internet links were really helpful. I remember the cycle we did crystals. I got to watch a slow lapse video of a crystal formation. It was really cool, and reading more on that and helping me learn the grammar of some of the science things that I was working with them about in foundation. So this one was really, really helpful, and honestly, for all 3 cycles. And again, for all 3 cycles, for fine arts, our step-by-step drawing series, as you can see here, works so well with oils. So when I tutored foundations, I always pulled our examples from this. And we drew some of these animals. There's a step-by-step drawing people, step-by-step drawing just regular book that has everything, or even dinosaurs. This is a new title that is fabulous for the 6 weeks that we do famous artists. And again, many of the famous painters that we study in all 3 cycles are in here. Degas. It talks about when we did abstract art. Oh, I should have had it marked. Yes, and this is cycle 3. Here when we did Liechtenstein, and we do pop art. This talks about perspective, horizon line, so even some of what we cover the first 6 weeks of drawing. So this, again, $14.99, it's a great book, and you can use it for multiple cycles, and then again, multiple cycles. First book of the Orchestra is a sounds book. It has an on and off switch, but especially if you have little ones and they need to see a visual of the instruments, and it includes a piece by, it doesn't, well, I thought it's one of the famous composers that we study, but I can't find it. So, those for fine arts. Now, for cycle 3 history, this is my favorite book. It's brand new. It's History Uncovered, because it literally uncovers the United States as you go through the Union. Now, just to have a visual, with some of the history statements might be nice, but even if you're not familiar with some of the things that are happening in history, I really, really love the way they have presented American history in this book. And it's just, you could use it as a tutor. You could also use it in your personal library. Love that one. And then I always love this one for timeline, all 3 cycles of history. There's not as much for cycle 3. There is some American history in here, but there's the 7 Wonders of the Ancient World. It goes so well with the timeline, bite-sized chunks of information. I just love this one, and this is the library edition, which is about $70, but the $19.99 one, I wish I'd gotten the $19.99 version. It's a physical smaller size, but everything is covered, and again, it's internet linked. It's great. The only thing, just a little disclaimer, it does go over all the evolution in the first section, so I just like to disclaimer that. And then the last thing that I used so much for cycle 3 were human body books, especially the 6 weeks when they make the full-size body and they color the systems, and just to read to them a little bit about what different parts of the skeleton system did, what some of the muscles do, what some of the main organs do, just for them to have a visual. And even like when they're memorizing the body parts, it was so helpful for me to have this one. I think this was the one I had at the time, but I remember we talked about the lungs when we did the science experiment with the lung capacity, and it was just helpful to have this, and I got them to help me do some of the flaps, and we read more of the information. And I think, I wish I'd had this one too, because it's just visually inviting. I always tutored obesitarians. And so this is another younger one as well about the body. But if you just need some visually engaging books that you can just grab and use for all of that to have a visual as you're tutoring, these are awesome. And then second semester, when we get to chemistry and we're memorizing the periodic table, I think it's helpful to show them, you know, these are the first 4 elements on the periodic table by number, and mass. I forgot. Anyway, can't wait to go back through it. So this is awesome. It's one of my all-time favorites. It explains each family of the elements as well. And then we also have it in a puzzle now, and it is super cool. And it does come with the non-flat version of this inside as well. So that's for $15, or you can, for the puzzle and the non-flat book, or you can get the flat book version for $15. So those are ones that I did use the last time I tutored Cycle 3, or some of our new titles that I would use if I was still tutoring foundations and not essentials. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me on Facebook, Suzanne Shares Usborne Books, or you can snag any of these on my website, SuzanneSharesUsborneBooks.com. All right, thanks, friends.